Your former life was in a bliss of ignorance, until you've awakened to the darkness waiting on the doorstep of our fragile dimension. Something terrible left its eons-old slumber, and the reality, as we knew it, collapsed. The city of Arkham was pulled to somewhere not of this world, and its residents are in the shadows of true terror. As a survivor of this catastrophe, you should investigate the strange occurrences in the city and survive the rising darkness, physically and mentally, if possible.
Hello everyone, I'm Nick from nextstepnick.com, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about Stygian. What kind of game it is, what kind of thing you can do, and what it's based on really. So, as you can tell straight away, Cthulhu mythos. There's a lot of Lovecraftian vibes in this. You've got Cthulhu in it as sort of a side note really at the start. I mean, full disclosure, I haven't completely finished the game. I'm still playing at the moment. There are aspects I really love and there are aspects I'm not so sure about. But first things first, we'll go through the good. So here, you're picking out your character when you first start out, and I really like this system actually. As a role-playing game element, I think it's really, really good to have this whole system of establishing your character from the get-go as to what you do, your job, your role, the kind of personality you are. I think that's really interesting. So you've got all your archetypes here, and then you've got your sub-archetypes. So for example, if you choose for example, performer, you could be a juggler, you could be an actor, you could be all sorts of different roles that kind of denote what kind of character you are, what kind of things you're into, your backstory, and also like a bit of a skill set for the start of the game. And I really love that feature actually. I feel like it immediately allows you to be a little bit closer to who you want to be. I had a real sort of problem here because I really wanted to be a detective. I love that noir style, private eye, Raymond Chandler kind of thing. I really like that. I like that kind of Philip Marlowe-esque detective. But at the same time, I really wanted to be an actor because I like those charismatic cowards. I think that's really good too when you've got like a charismatic, witty coward. So I was really drawn between the two here. This is your character's outlook, so your belief system. So for example, you could be a character that's more humanist, so you're more into helping other people, you're more into the occult, you're more scientific, and all of these represent how you lose. The game has a sanity meter, so how you lose or gain sanity. So for example, if you're into the occult, the likelihood is you're going to gain sanity through different types of things. So you're going to gain sanity through books to do with spells and the mythos itself, whereas if you're humanist, when you're helping another character, you're going to gain sanity there. So we're just picking out our face here and our character portrait. Full disclosure, I really, really, really like Alexandre Dumas, The Three Musketeers, that kind of thing. So to be honest, my sort of go-to surname in games like this, when I feel like I need a surname, always tends to be Dumas. But then that's just the way I roll really, I'm nerdy like that, so such is life. But I thought this was a really interesting way to get to know how your character will grow, to sort of feel closer to your character and kind of become that character. I really like that system. So straight away, I was met with this really positive experience. It's got this really great, as well as you saw at the beginning, introduction where you're seeing like this really well-voiced and acted cutscene that really sets the scene as this grim, noir, edgy kind of occult place full of mystery, and I like that. And here as well, what we're doing is we're picking out our skills. So you'll see our attributes and then our skills. Now, we're just loading up the start of the game, and I just wanted to highlight one of the things I love about this game is I love the art style. I love the fact they've gone with this poster style, this kind of, it's almost embracing that cult aspect of it. So it's embracing that theatrical, it's embracing that enjoyable theatrical vibe. And with the introduction to the game as well, you see a lot of placements where it really embraces that. So for example, here as we're getting introduced to the plot, you can see that it's kind of appearing through the blood, and the blood staying on certain words like Dismal Man, Find Me Beyond Arkham After the Black Day. So you're invested in this. It's interesting, it's fun, it's exciting, and you can tell the kind of tone you're going to get. You can tell it's going to be something that's very much on that sanity meter scale. It's going to be the same kind of thing as Call of Cthulhu, that kind of thing. You're going to have that good and bad is kind of blurred. Everything is very much that nihilistic, nothing matters perspective, so it's up to you to choose how you impact the world around you. And I really liked that. I thought it was really good. This had a real effect on me, actually. At this point, I was sitting forward, really excited, which is ironic when you think about the nihilistic nature of the game. But I was really excited to play it, really wanted to get into it. And to be honest, I've had a really good time so far. I mean, like I say, full disclosure, I haven't finished the game yet. I've been caught up in so many side quests, so many bits and pieces. I've been loving it. But here's another example of the game really embracing those morbid but theatrical roots. As you're following this character at the start, just establishing the plot, you've got these ghosts appearing and doing this dance, and I love it. I love it. The music as well, musical accompaniment is really, really well chosen. And just in the way the art style is used, I think it's really beautiful. I think they've done so many things that have shown the passion on this project. So like with this, don't get me wrong, a lot of people will say, oh, graphics, but at the same time, when you use an art style like this effectively, I mean, the way that this has turned from a dance into this aggressive twist, you know, this whole thing of they're now attacking each other, and I love that twist, and you don't need amazing graphics to show that. You just, as long as your art style and your theme and your music feeds into that, you can have something really effective. I mean, same thing here really, we've just gone into the bar for the first time, and it really helps with that musical accompaniment, with that art direction and those scenes around here and the character placements and the dialogue. It really helps to make the entire environment feel alive. It feels like these characters are real. It feels like the areas and environments are vibrant and full of things to look at and do. I mean, I was worried about when you first go through and you follow that character you saw before, that's how you sort of establish the plot. You walk through here and you couldn't click on any of the environmental aspects, so I wanted to look at these posters and I wanted to look at all these bits and pieces, but you couldn't at the start, and it made me really worried that maybe we weren't able to be as close to the world as I wanted to be. But it's actually the other way around. You can examine everything in this room, you can look at all the different people in here, you can look at all the different aspects, so for example you can look at posters and things like that. But you can also meet these characters. I love these portraits as well, they're very kitsch, but they're great. They have a lot of character in them. But this is where the game really shines, in its world building, its environment, and also its characters. Your character interactions are really interesting and they feel very fleshed out. You can choose different options, very much sort of a la Mass Effect and those kind of things. You can choose options based on your skills, you can choose different ways to deal with problems. For example, my character was humanist, so if I choose an option that benefits sort of another person or helps someone else out, I will gain, for example, more sanity. But just by solving problems, I'll gain experience. So you'll see me here talking to this darts player, and this really weird thing happens now where I kind of end up confusing him. I love the fact that he skips away, and then he ends up throwing a dart at me. So that's literally my first interaction with another character other than the bartender, and I loved it. I thought it was great. I love the animation as well, and that skipping. It's so strange in regard to, because the art style that's used is this kind of papercraft art, it looks very alien when you see characters moving at certain times, but that just adds to the feel of the game. Like I say, it's these choices. It's like here, we've got this choice where my character at this point has developed paranoia because of a previous experience, and so objects there, like things we could say, were changing and the words were twisting. You might have seen that in the last scene. Or like here when we've got this character, this very Cthulhu-esque Lovecraftian character here, we can use our speechcraft to potentially convince him or to change his mind on something or investigate different things, but it doesn't always work, so it keeps you on your toes. The one sort of problem I had with Mass Effect, for example, was that if you went for an option that you'd unlocked, it would pretty much always be a good option, let's be honest. It would be a case of bypassing a puzzle. Whereas it's a lot more interesting to utilise that literally as a skill. I mean, you might notice something, but that character may not want it brought up. So it might be in your best interest to avoid it. As you go through the game, you can level up your skills. So you can get all different skills. And you've got these little perks here as well. Perks and abilities where you can sort of learn special things. For example, extra critical chance. You can do extra dodge. You've got extra sanity gain. And they're very interesting. They help sort of play towards your play style. And I just really love it. To be honest, everything I've mentioned so far, I really, really like. This game, it takes a little while before you get into combat, and that's when it starts to fall down for me. And I love this kind of thing. I love the world building. I mean, here we've rested, so we can sort of experiment into items we've found. We can do research and scouting. We can make decisions and choose basically how our characters progress when they rest. And just here, these little items here that we've picked up and things that we've found, they really ooze character. They're really interesting. They help to build this really expansive world, and I think it's real. But then you get to the one negative that I have really, and that's that I feel like this all goes against everything that we see in the combat. So here's a combat scene here. We're in a bank at this point. We've been attacked by sort of maniacs, people who are insane, and this is where it kind of falls down, because I feel like the artistic choices in this fight, the choices in regard to the characters, they don't really work. I mean, here we're fighting against these lunatics. They have this ability where they can go a bit mad and attack each other, and I thought that was really interesting. It really breaks things up. But like here, you'll see we've got like an AP system. It's very XCOM-esque. But say with your AP, you've got these green balls in the top left. You should see them around the portraits, and that will dictate how many attacks you can do. It's your standard AP system. But the problem is that you can get trapped into these loops of getting to your turn, missing every hit, and then just being wailed on by enemies with far more AP than you. I mean, they can do 3 attacks, whereas I can only do maybe 1 or 2 a turn. And I understand this is early in the game, but the problem is it doesn't start off at a low point. You're immediately, in every battle you go into, you're fighting 6 enemies, you're fighting 3 enemies far stronger than you. There's not really very many where you fight against something weaker than you, and you're always on the back foot. And I know that's the commitment to Lovecraftian horror, you know, being in a world that kind of doesn't want you there and rejects you, but at the same time, all that really happens is that it just feels like you're not welcome, you're not enjoying it, it's not fun. I mean, here, for example, the artistic decisions are to make everything dark and kind of wispy. I'll brighten it up now so you can actually see what's going on. But the problem is that you cannot brighten things up in the game. I've had to do this sort of during the editing, and that means during this part of the game, I was pretty much squinting at the screen because things on the far left, I can't really see. I mean, you'll notice as well that our characters all have a bit of a debuff for being in this area. I think it's for that. They don't actually tell you why. But I'm missing most of my attacks because of that, whereas these enemies are just wailing on me and killing me. And there is this system where you can run away from combat, you can escape, but there's a certain number of turns before you can do that. And there are certain places, for example, where you kind of have to soldier on, you have to push through anyway. And that means that you're kind of just hitting your head against a wall. It's not Dark Souls, it's not go away, think about this thing that killed you, maybe re-equip, think about different tactics and come back in. It's much more just, it's a bit more like something like Sekiro, to be honest, where you can't really change your tactics. You can change the way you do things, but you can't change your equipment, sorry is what I should say. You can change your tactics to an extent, but the enemies are always going to outnumber you, they're always going to be stronger than you, they're always going to have an advantage over you. So it's a bit disheartening, which I know, again, is a tonal choice for the game. It's very much exactly what the Cthulhu mythos is, but at the same time, it means that it's just not that fun to play. And I know that there are games that aren't fun to play. For example, this War of Mine is a good one. You know, it doesn't make you feel great. Spec Ops is another one. It doesn't make you feel great, but despite the fact you don't feel great about your decisions, or you might not feel great about the way in which the world is evolving, you enjoy the combat to an extent. It's not aggressively anti-player, whereas I feel like you're always on the back foot here when it comes to combat, and that's not always that fun. I mean, I've used different tactics in different fights to try and see how I can get past them. So I've separated my characters up, I've put them close together, I've tried to do the whole flanking manoeuvre. At this point in the top, for example, the top left here, you can see I actually flanked this monster from both sides, but unfortunately both characters either side of him just kept missing. So I got into this loop of either missing completely or hitting this enemy for maybe 0 damage, because even if you hit sometimes you can inflict 0 damage, and if you do a critical fail you can hurt yourself. So you end up in this loop of being unable to really do anything, and then characters start dying, and then it's this vicious circle of going, okay, I'll throw myself in again, I'll throw myself in again, and it's a really fun game. I think the world building is fantastic, but I just feel like it's at odds with this combat. I think maybe just giving the player a little bit more of an advantage. There isn't really a difficulty scale, so just a little bit of an advantage to the player, just a little saving grace would make it so much better. But anyway, thank you so much for listening. Please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. It really does help out when it comes to creating content. If you do want to see more of my articles or more of my videos, please head over to www.nextstepnick.com, and thank you very much.